Last year, I set out to design a knitted garment that felt really true to who I am and my style. Something that was colorful and had this childlike, nostalgic quality to it, almost like the sweater that I'm wearing today. And with that, I drafted my own design for a whale shark vest that incorporated all my favorite colors, especially this beautiful, deep teal color. Now flash forward to present day me. I'm sitting here thinking, man, I really want to start designing and writing my own patterns, but I don't really have a pattern in mind right now, nor do I really have the time to be drafting up a brand new one. And then I realized, duh, I could just write a pattern for my whale shark vest. Okay, so I've never made a pattern before, but from my understanding, this is generally how the process goes. Okay, obviously the first step is to actually create the garment. Whether you're just freehanding it or doing measurements beforehand and using those as a guide to make the pattern, regardless of the method, you have to make a sample. 2, after making this sample, now you have to scale it up and scale it down to standard sizes. So usually the standard sizes are from extra small to 5XL. After this step, you go in and you draft your pattern. Now this includes all the notes that you've taken in chronological order of how you made the garment. And maybe you'll add some little details here on common knitting abbreviations or techniques that you might have used. Step 4 is the editing process. So some people will hire a tech editor, which is someone who basically just reads your entire pattern, make sure that your grammar is correct, that everything makes sense, that your measurements are correct. This is a step that isn't required, and honestly, I don't even know if I'm going to do this step, just because personally, I've never done anything like this before. So if you have a recommendation on a tech editor, DM me on Instagram, email me, let me know. Maybe I'll take that person into consideration. Step 5 is probably one of the most exciting steps because you really get to see your pattern come to life, which is test knitters. So you'll choose people to knit the different sizes and make sure all of the measurements and everything are correct before releasing it to the public. And then for the last step, you release it into the wild. It's public, people can now purchase your pattern and hopefully knit it up. So with that, we're going to start all the way at step 1 and make the sample. Okay, so off camera, I already took the measurements of the sample that I already have and kind of planned out what I'm going to do. Now, even though I do have a sample from last year, there are a couple tweaks I want to make to it to really perfect this pattern. For one, I really do like the oversized look of this vest. However, I think it's a little bit too oversized on me. I'm worried about how this vest will scale up and down, so I want to make a more standard oversized version of it. And for that reason, I also want to change the v-neck of this vest. I think it's a little bit too low. If someone's going to wear this without anything underneath, I think the v-neck will have to be higher, so that's something I'll also have to take into consideration. So with that, I created a little Excel sheet with all the standard sizes from extra small to 5XL. One other thing I'm kind of running into is the gauge swatch for the yarn. In my original sample, I used the Juniper Moon Farm Moonshine yarn, and this claims that it's a worsted weight yarn. I consider this more of an Aran weight yarn. Aran? I never know which is the correct way to say it. And for the second sample that I'm making, I'm using the Wool Addicts Honesty yarn, which claims that it's bulky, but again, I would consider this like an Aran weight yarn. But now I need to go purchase some more yarn, so let's go to the yarn store and pick some up. Okay guys, I'm so sorry I did not film while I was in the yarn store because there were too many people in there and I got nervous. It's such a small store. But I still wanted to show you guys what I got, and there were a little bit of complications because I knew this store sold Wool Addicts yarn, but they do not sell Wool Addict Honesty yarn. So that was a bit of an issue because I started working up this sample that does use Wool Honesty. So I tried to find a similar yarn as close as possible to the same texture and the same gauge to make sure that this pattern would be consistent. This is what I came out with. It's the Lang Yarns Snowflake multicolor yarn. It's this really pretty blue and almost like brown color. I don't know, like a tan. I thought it'd be a nice base for the whale shark. So that's the color I'm going to choose. I'm going to do a little swatch just to double check that is indeed the same gauge as the Wool Addicts yarn. And then if it is, I'm just going to continue using the Wool Addicts yarn for at least the ribbing. I think that's what I'll do. Just looking at it, I mean, this has cotton, alpaca, nylon, and wool in it, which is a pretty similar similar fibers to the Wool Addict Honesty. I think this will work for the vest. Hopefully it's the same gauge. We'll see. Okay, so I just knit up a little swatch here. It's not a full swatch, but it is about an inch, so I just scaled it up to the 4 inches, and the swatch is perfect. It is 18 stitches by 24 rows, which is the exact number that I need. I did go on the Laying Yarns website just to check what they categorize this yarn as. Because, like I said before, the Wool Addicts Honesty yarn is a bulky weight yarn. At least that's what they classify it on the website and on the packaging. And this laying yarn, with it being the same exact gauge, at least for how I knit, they call this worsted. And that's the same for the moonshine yarn too. So I don't understand the standardization of weights of yarns. Usually I feel like I can tell from the touch. I'm gonna call it an Aran weight yarn because I think that makes more sense. Yeah, like I personally would not call this a worsted weight yarn. To some extent, I know that weights also have to do with the amount of ply a yarn has. That's confusing too. Anyways, because this swatch now fits the exact gauge, I am going to use the ribbing that I have here. I did start just knitting it normally, but I'm going to go back a couple rows and then start using the laying yarn for this sample. Good morning, my lovelies. Today is a new day and progress has been made. So last night I pretty much knitted all evening and almost got through one complete skein of the laying yarn. For right now, it's working out pretty nicely. One thing I am concerned about is I might have not gotten enough skeins. I bought 4 skeins because when I originally made the first version of the whale shark vest, I think I used around 200 grams of yarn. I'm now thinking for this laying yarn, I might need one more skein, so it'll be like 250 grams. But we'll see once we get there because obviously I need to do the shaping for the armholes, so that doesn't take nearly as much yarn as the bottom does. So today's plan is to go to a cafe, get some work done. I have some other things I need to do too, and not just working on this pattern. So I'm going to do that and just continue knitting away. Stop me. My brain's not working anymore. It's been a long weekend. I started using the second skein of yarn and the pattern is knitting up very nicely, might I say. One thing I was concerned about as I was knitting it was I was worried that it was getting a little bit wide, but comparing it to the original vest that I have, I think honestly, it's still a little oversized, which is what I want, but not nearly as oversized as the original. So that's a good sign. Hopefully it doesn't stretch out too much. And I've never used this laying yarn before, but oh my gosh, it is so beautiful. It has this self-striping, almost speckled pattern to it, and it's so pretty. I didn't realize this at first either, but the colors in the laying yarn are also very close to the original colors that I used for the whale shark vest. It has the nice blue and a little bit of this brownish yellow color. I think when I add the whale shark on top, it'll look very nicely. These vests will complement each other very well. Yeah, I wasn't kidding when I said like this teal color is my favorite color. I, for whatever reason, just really gravitate towards it, and it's really hard for me not to always just pick this teal and yellow color combination. Anyways, I feel like I need to do some stretching. That's a reminder for you guys too, if you guys are knitting along with me. Take a break and stretch a little bit. Get some water, get some food. You need to be taking care of yourself. See, I say that, but I don't really do that for myself. Anyways, I'm going to do some knitting off camera, and then I'll show you guys my progress when I get a little bit closer to doing the decreases and shaping.
Open air, side by side we sway there in all the colors. Summer love. Lonesome dove, folded on the lawn chair in all the colors. Summer love. Remember when we were getting nowhere fast, when the garden won't stop giving back. Honeysuckle, fresh cut grass. I could really use some stuff like that.
Okay, while it's probably only been a couple minutes for you guys, it has been a week for me, and I'm afraid that I have not progressed that far into this vest. I did finish the second skein of yarn for this vest, and it's now about halfway through the body, so where the v-neck naturally lays on the original whale shark vest is pretty much up to where I've knit to with this vest. But I am a little bit concerned that this is going to grow when I block it. Is that something I should have considered before knitting this whole thing up? Probably. I have no excuse. I literally have no excuse. I knew that I should have blocked at least a swatch, but I'm always playing yarn chicken, that I'm never actually binding off my little swatches and blocking them. So I need to do it this time with basically this whole thing. I am going to block this half of the vest, see what happens. I'm going to see how much it grows. Hopefully the gauge swatch doesn't change too much, but I just want to double check and be sure. I want to do my due diligence with this project. So, time to throw this in a little bath of water. Alright, I got some bad news. So I blocked the half of the vest that I had, and I realize it is too wide. So one of the points that I made earlier in this video was that I wanted this vest to be a little bit narrower, still oversized, don't get me wrong, but I wanted to decrease the positive ease just a little bit. That way, when it scales up to other sizes, it wouldn't be like too big. However, I realized that I should have blocked it. I should have blocked my original swatch, and I know people are going to tell me that I should do this every single time I start a project, but I get so excited every single time I start a project that this always happens. It's just a part of my process. I'm fine with that. It does make me a little bit sad because obviously for this video I do not have the whale shark vest as the end product, the sample, but I want to make this pattern as perfect as possible, especially if I'm going to be sharing this with other people like you guys that might be interested in making it. I honestly thought about scrapping this video altogether, but I thought it'd be good to show the process of pattern designing, especially being this this being my first time designing a pattern. So I hope this gives you guys a little insight into what I've been doing recently. Am I disappointed that I didn't get to finish the sample in this video? Yes, but at the same time, I'm trying to give myself a little bit of grace because I have a lot of stuff going on in my personal life. This project should be a project that I want to get excited about working on. I don't want to make stress out of this project for myself, and I have the tendency to do that with things that I like doing. I'm just a very like naturally stressed out person. So, my goal is to not do this while designing this pattern. I want to feed as much love into this pattern as possible so that when you guys get it, you guys will also hopefully put much love into this pattern when you make it. Anyways, I think that's going to be it for this video. If you would like to follow me on Instagram, I'll leave the link below. It's at Leftover Dinner. I post a lot about obviously knitting, but also a little tidbit about, my personal life, stuff that I'm eating, stuff that I'm doing. So if you'd like to see more of me, you can go there. If you'd like to continue following me on my pattern making journey, please subscribe to this channel. I also make other videos about knitting and sometimes crocheting as well. Really anything related to fiber arts. So if that interests you, please stick around. Anyways, I'll see you guys hopefully in my next video. Bye!